Hello, hello. Zaide here with another episode of DramaQuest. Today we are joined by Qulas from Druzzil Ro. You might know him from his time as an officer and eventually guild leader for the guild Realm of Insanity. He also led another guild on the TLP server, Ragefire, called Reign of Insanity. And perhaps most importantly of all, he was one time an officer in Faceless Insanity. Qulas, tossing it to you.
Thank you so much for having me, Zaide. I'm really excited about this. Once I heard Corkins, I knew I had to come on and be better than him, like always. So I'm excited for this tonight. Thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah, no, I heard you had to come set the record straight.
Yeah, absolutely. Corkin told many not truths, which I'm excited to get into correcting today. But no, I first and foremost, I'm all love the Corkin. He's my dude, and those years battling Triality were really fun, really interesting. I think each guild kind of got us to up our games, and that was an exciting time in Everquest. So I'm ready to dig into it.
Awesome. Hey, so before we normally we do this chronologically, but since we were already talking about Corkin, what was it like dealing with Corkin as a competitor versus dealing with him as an ally in the guild?
So I think the biggest difference is, as competitors, I really didn't interact with Corkin much at all. He was kind of doing his thing, getting Triality to kind of be their best. I was doing my thing over here. So our interaction was very limited. It really wasn't until after we kind of stopped competing to where Triality was, no longer rating. That's really kind of when we connected and really kind of hit it off. And then the whole time I was thinking, as we first started talking, damn, like if we could just talked years ago, we probably would have been friends this whole time. But, it really took just that competition ending for us to really meet and hit it off and click. And, I'm glad I did, because, he's such a good dude. And, I'm looking forward to our continued friendship, even after we no longer play in the pixel world together.
Yeah, it is. It's hard to look past the competition sometimes, and you know what I mean. You have to stay hard when you're trying to beat someone. You can't afford to always be friends with them, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can't, even though they're friends, at the end of the day, like if you play sports or whatever, at the end of the game, you shake hands. But unfortunately for EverQuest, there is no end of the game. You never shake hands until you decimate everybody else around you. So,
right. Yeah, like it's funny because like you might you win an expansion race, you say something friendly to somebody, and then 6 months later you see a screenshot of what you said or something somewhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you had to be careful because everything was recorded, everything was screenshotted. But
I've done things where like I've endorsed a guild. I've been like, yeah, this is like one of my favorite guilds. I think they're super great. And then like 2 years later, they're competing with my guild and they're posting my screenshot endorsing them, and I'm like, God damn it! Like that's what I get for saying something nice.
That's you fucked up. There you go.
All right. So, can you tell us how you found out about EQ? How were you introduced to the game?
It was actually kind of crazy. I was introduced very young. I want to say it was sixth grade, and how I found the game. So after school got out, I would walk to my aunt's house, which was down the street, until my mom could pick me up or whatever. And then her and her husband at the time were playing EverQuest, and I was like, "What is this thing?" And it kind of reminded me like Final Fantasy, and I was kind of really into like RPGs at the time. And they were like, "Yeah, cool." Then they let me make a little druid on there, and I started my account, and just kind of loved it, fell in love with it. And then for Christmas, or maybe it was my birthday, I forget exactly when, but they got me my own account, and they got my mom an account, and we just kind of all played as like a little family, and it was actually pretty cool. But yeah, so just came home from school one day and saw it on a computer screen, wanted to check it out, and that's how I got introduced to the world of Norath.
So what did the family play? What was your trio?
So I originally was a druid, and then I was really good at like the EC tunnel stuff, where you would like go and like sit around and find deals, and that was like my jam, is going there and making money. And then doing that, I was like, I'm gonna twink a monk out, like just for fun. And then once I had them all twinked, I just fell in love with the monk, and that kind of became ever and forever after that. So, and then my mother actually played a shaman, and my aunt played a bard, and then we kind of dominated. I don't know if you remember the Zone Umbral Plains. They had these like mobs that dropped these bracers that had like plus 15 wisdom and stuff, and like everybody wanted them. And my aunt literally would like call us at 2 a.m. Hey, Zelnthak is up, and then we would go kill it. And it was just like for like 6 months we had every single Zelnthak and twin kill in there. It was insane.
That's crazy. Were you guys also doing that? Was it Rumble Crush? Is that the dude who's over by VT's online?
So Rumble Crush was a little hard for us to trio, so we didn't do
Hmm.
him. We just went after the Bracer guys, which was the Morthok, and then there was the one in the cave that dropped bracers. So yeah, we kind of went after those.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah. So you were big in the Luckland era. Did you? I guess you would go to the bazaar and like buy low, sell high, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's basically all I did back in the day was the buy low, sell high stuff and just clink out my monk. Uh, but that was kind of like what was fun for me because I didn't really like we don't really want raiding or anything. We were just kind of just playing as a family at that time. So that's kind of like what we did for fun and hanging out is just doing that.
Were you guys in a guild at all?
We were in a guild. It was called Shadow Congress. It was just a little family guild. I still talk to some people from that guild from today. That's the cool thing about games like this is you really do make friendships with it. But yeah, no, that was a little family guild we were in, and we tried to rate here or there, but it was nothing serious like I did later on.
So really, before we even go any further, Ixar or human?
Uh, so truthfully, I've always been a human, but my
Hell yeah.
latest monk is changed to Ixcar because I wanted the AC.
Yeah, I mean, I could see the min max perspective, but human monks just look so good. When you put that robe of the azure sky on them, the drip is amazing.
I think we can all agree, just not Draken.
Right? Yeah. I'm ashamed to say that my warrior right now is a Draken.
Oh God, what are you
I
doing?
always it's rage bait. I always change to the dumbest race possible whenever it comes out.
Well, Halfling was probably the dumbest race, but whatever.
Yeah. Okay. So what was the first raid that you actually did when you finally broke into raiding?
Like with Realm Insane, or you mean like ever?
Ever?
So I was the raid leader for Shadow Congress when we started doing Planes of Power. So the first raid I ever actually led was in Plane of Disease, and it was Grummus, and it was kind of fun. That's really where my love for raiding probably started. Was actually leading all those, and then we progressed through Grummus all the way to Plane of Time, which was really cool. I had a really fun time doing that.
And now, when you did that, what era was EverQuest in?
Oh, it was way past the current. We were super behind. It was like it was super casual, and it was like raiding once a week for 2 hours kind of thing. It wasn't
Hmm.
like we weren't really try hards either at that time. It was just kind of doing it because it was fun more than it
Yeah,
was
no,
like
definitely.
edgy or whatever.
I mean, I remember when I was a kid, my first raid ever was Runny Eye. Like my guild met up, and we all went into Runny Eye, and it was a chaotic clusterfuck, and everyone like died somehow in this newbie zone.
Does that
So
really count though? I guess if you all were dying, I guess it counts.
it's real to me.
That's all that matters.
Yeah, but yeah, I was also 9 years old, so
Yeah, then it counts.
yeah. Okay, so you did that, and you basically just do kind of like minor, relatively casual rating all the way up until you got in with ROI.
So I want to say after Shadow Congress kind of faded out, we joined a guild called I think it was Seafon or Seafins. I don't know. Everyone called it a little differently, but they were a little more try hard. At the time, they were like one or two expansions behind. I forget the name of the expansion, but it was the one where like you went back in time and like there was new Quanos or whatever, and there was that Fippy raid in the tunnel. Like we were farming that
Underfoot.
raid. No, way before Underfoot.
Well,
It was oh dang, what was the name of the raid? It was like New Blackborough or whatever.
yeah, I don't know.
No, I
I
gotta
mean, New
figure it out.
Blackborough is in Seeds of Destruction, right?
Yeah, I think it was so it was Seasons Destruction
Oh
is when
yeah,
I
well
was in
I guess that's
Sayafon.
1 year before Underfoot on like live, right?
Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
right before I joined RY. I was in CFN, and then they actually how RY even came to this server is they decided to not allow them to be TLP anymore and force them to be a live server, and they actually merged Combine into Druzzil Ro. And so that's how they kind of came to our servers, just, happenstance and luck. It was just dumb luck that they came here.
Now, was there who was the top guild before ROI arrived, just on the server?
They were called Pravis Mortis, and they were terrible, and I hate them.
Why'd you hate them?
Oh, because they thought they were good, but they really weren't. So they were super mad when ROI came on the scene because they knew they no longer were even close to being the top guild. And I think I want to say the first time I even posted anything on the ROI forums, it was something like, "I'm so glad ROI is finally here, so our server can have a real raiding guild instead of this piece of shit Private's Mortis." So I said something
Damn.
like that on the forums. My first post ever on the ROI forums was talking shit about them. So I did not like them at all. But
Yeah.
whatever.
ROI probably
Grudges.
loved that.
I'm sure they memed it quite a bit. Yes.
Now, does Pravis Mortis still exist?
I doubt it. I don't think so. I mean, there might be one or two people running around with that tag, but I doubt it.
I guess that's kind of like a live server thing. Like guilds just exist with like 5 or 10 people and go on for years, kind of like doing nothing, right?
Yeah, this guild hall guilds at this point, or
Yeah.
I just keep
As
my
as
alt in
a
this guild.
as a TLP guy, that's so foreign to me. You know what I mean? Like every guild on TLP is a raid guild, pretty much.
Oh yeah, see, that's I only did TLP for one expansion, so that's foreign to me. The guild's not being around forever, I guess.
Yeah. All right. So I guess we'll go right there to that SOD timeline when ROI comes over. Do you apply right away or do you wait a little bit?
No, we actually. So at the time, I had a really good friend. His name was Karyath, and he was a rogue, and he was badass. And it was so Karyath and me kind of were carrying the DPS of Segathon, which, and I'm not trying to like brag or nothing, but it was a tryhard guild, and at the time they were really losing people, and it was really that time, that whole era, guilds were just losing people, and I think that's just kind of like a common thing in the game is you lose more people than you get.
Yep.
Um, So when RY came over, their recruiter was actually, his name is Gandani. He actually reached out to Karyath, and he wanted Karyath so bad. And the funniest part of the whole thing is they really wanted nothing to do with me. But but Karyath was like, if you want me to come over, you got to take him with me.
Hell
So
yeah.
they ended up taking me because they wanted him. And I just think that's like one of those funny things where like if I didn't have him attached to me, they never would have let me out because at the time their monks weren't very competitive compared to the rest of their DPS classes, and monks really weren't very good in general at that time either. So it's just one of those things where if it wasn't for him, I don't get into ROI, and so it's just kind of funny, like all these little, they come to the server just because they picked a random Druzzil Ro. I get accepted to ROI just because I was with Carrier. So it's just all these little things that probably should have never happened just continue to happen, and it's just crazy how it all ended up.
Everything's just falling into place.
Yeah, almost like it was fate.
Right. Almost like it. So what was the application process like for them? How long were you like a recruit?
So day one, you post the app on the forum, and then they don't. At the time I joined, it was a little weird because they had a Ventrilo, but they wouldn't let apps in it. So me and Kareth were in our Ventrilo, like trying to figure out what the hell was going on, and it was crazy. Like this is actually really funny. Our first raid with ROI. Now, again, at this point in time, they were farming like Discord Tower and stuff like that, right?
Right.
So they went back to Meldrath Mansion just to get some gear for all the apps they just got because they went on a huge recruit push and they probably had like 6 or 7 apps that all started right at the same time. So they go to Meldrath Mansion and they spawn Breakneck. And the funniest thing, so Shenron, who's still actually with the guild, he decides to pop Glyph in 7th and just burns the absolute piss out of Breakneck. And it spawns so many ads that it overwhelms and wipes the whole guild on the first raid we ever did. They wiped to Breakneck. And I remember Karyath and I talked and we were like, did we make a mistake coming here? This is ridiculous.
Right. Well, these guys
So
kind of suck.
yeah, I was like, we could have did this shit in Safe. We came here for this. But yeah, after that event, Gandani actually sat with both of us and was like, we're better than this, I promise. We're better than this, I promise. And so we ended up sticking it out. But it was really funny how just awful that first raid was. But I think a lot of that was, they did have like 7 or 8 new apps, but it was 100% Sharon's fault because he did burn Glyph in 7th on the one event you're not supposed to burn Glyph in 7th on. But
Right. Yeah, it's like you always have to respect the content a little bit. It's
well,
funny because
if you knew Shenron, he just kind of does what Shenron does, regardless
right.
of the content or regardless of anything. He does his own thing, which is one of the things I love about him.
Yeah. He's been there almost the entire time, right? Was he originally from IV and then came into ROI, or was he like ROI Classic Combine?
So I want to say he was ROI Classic. There's not many people in ROI the last time I played that were in the guild longer than I was, and he was one of those people. So when I apped, he was already there, and there was only a few people left. So he was pre me, but I believe he was a combine person. Yeah,
Yeah, that guy's like part of the bedrock of that guild at this point.
yeah, him and Atvar and Strangle. I think those are the only ones that were before me. I would say there might be one more, and I apologize if I forgot about you. Please forgive me.
But yeah, I mean, I know as a guild leader and stuff, it really really sucks when you have a bunch of apps and you're like, okay, let this raid be like perfectly clean. You know what I mean? We'll do split rates and stuff right now on Mischief, and if we have like a bunch of apps, I'll be like, okay, like let's put them with our best raid leader and like make sure that raid's a little bit stacked so they have like a good image of how things are here.
Yeah, I think, and it's crazy because the next night I think we did Discord Tower and it was like flawless. So it was just like such a dumb thing that happened like on that first night. But you never know what's gonna happen until you do it.
Yeah. So, you were there, and how long was it before Underfoot came out?
So I want to say after we apped, it was a couple months, and then I became officer, and then it was probably 5 or 6 months after that, and then Underfoot came out.
How did you become an officer so quickly?
So it's actually again, this is one of those things where just one in a million kind of things. So at the time they were looking for a raid leader, and so me and I assume a bunch of people applied. So I applied to be the raid leader, and another person named Hatsy applied to be the raid leader. So they actually Hatsy was an awesome ranger. He was a good person as well. And so Hatsy actually got the raid leader gig, but Swag, who was the leader at the time, sat me down and was like, I don't think you'd be the best raid leader for us, but I think you'd be the best recruiter. And at the time, I was like, I don't want to do that shit. I want to lead raids. But just shout out to Swag for realizing, just maybe that was the role I was meant to do, was recruit. Because that at that time I was like, well, if he's going to make me recruit, I'm going to be the best goddamn recruiter this game has ever seen. And that kind of was my goal. And you know, maybe I did maybe I came close to that goal, or but no, it's crazy. It's just one of those things that I didn't want to be the recruiter. It was just kind of like, hey, help the guild be a recruiter, and and that's kind of went out and recruited my ass off, and went from there.
Were they experiencing a lot of like a turnover with the old guard once they had kind of like finished combine, and that seems like a point in time where a lot of people would be like, okay, I did my time and now it's good for me to drop. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so from what I understand, right after they got into Druzzil Ro, a lot of them quit, and
Yep.
that's why they kind of when I came in. So I missed the hey, there we're a live server now. We're pissed off we didn't get to finish tower on combine. All of them quit. Not all of them, but a lot of people quit. So I missed all that, and then shortly after that, the influx of the Druzzil Ro people came to ROI and kind of fortified it from there.
Yeah, there you go. And they came in hungry with that TLP mindset.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the big things that we had in Underfoot, was that we weren't burnt out from SOD because everyone had that TLP mindset, whereas other guilds who have been farming Discord Tower for, because I think if I'm not mistaken, that was not a 12-month cycle. I think that was an 18-month cycle. So
Whoa.
they were really like burnt out on it by the time Underfoot came around. Whereas ROI was, we just recruited all these people from CT. We just got a bunch of people from Township. We're live now, so we were all hungry, ready to kick some ass, ready to prove ourselves, and so that was a big edge we had, is that we were never burnt out from Tower. Which there was actually a really good guild called Dark Horizon, and they got completely burnt out from Tower, and so much to the point where they didn't even recruit for months. And we ended up getting a lot of people from Dark Horizon who ended up being really great players. So part of me always wondered, like, what if Dark Horizon had been recruited? Maybe they would have taken over and been the best guild, but you never really know. But that they made the decision not to recruit, which was probably ultimately their demise.
You basically can never stop recruiting.
Yeah, that was always what I did. Once I became a recruiter, I never stopped. We would have, one of the things I like to do is never make too big of a bench. We always put more of an emphasis on attendance percent instead of number in the raid, I guess. So like I would always want to aim for like 65 people who go 80% rather than you would see other guilds who would go for 75, 80 people who go 60%. So for us, we wanted kind of more solidarity and familiarity. So we went with, higher percentage rather than higher number.
Now, was split rating just not a thing on live at that time?
Uh, Probably not for Underfoot, but for House of Thul, definitely split raid. Because the Underfoot raids, there were a lot different when they first came out compared to what they are now. A lot of them were really bugged, um, extremely challenging, but not really sure if it was challenging because it was actually challenging or challenging because half the mechanics were broken and not working. So you
Right.
really couldn't split in Underfoot. But in House of Thul and beyond, yeah, split rating became something you could definitely do.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm looking at kind of like, I know TLPs are different, but like looking at what we're doing right now on Mischief in our guild, we're in Secrets of Fade. We're in like tonight's raid, we had 3 splits, and it's like 3, 4, 5. It's like 5 or 6 groups per split. And we're trying to maintain that number as far as we can go. Like you basically never want to have a bench if you can avoid it, right? But I've heard a lot of live guilds are, I guess it's like 20 years of attrition, right?
Yeah, I think that'd be probably hard for a live guild right now because it's just I think there's been like 24 expansions or something, so when you get to the live game, it's a lot different than the TLP game for sure.
Yeah. So you became a recruiter, and I heard how effective you were because I've heard other guilds kind of whine about you. And Cork had talked about it a little bit when he was on. Like you were poaching guys from Triality left and right. How were you able to get these guys who were already in top guilds like CT, TR, Triality? How did you get them to come over to your side?
Well, again, this is one of those things like it never should have happened. We were just some pissant guild that hadn't even been live, but somehow we were recruiting from Crimson Tempest, who technically technically won Discord Tower.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
technically won that expansion, but for some reason, and I got to give props to Gandani because he really went after 2 of their best players. One of them was a cleric named Zaria, who at the time, a lot of people probably would have said she was the best cleric in the game. And we also got Sadavoch, who went also by Infrared, who if you ask him, he would tell you he's the best bard in the game. So to get these like top people from the top guilds to be interested to come over to us, it was extremely challenging. And really, what our approach was is we just looked at the parses. So we said, show me your event 4 parse. I don't remember what event it was. So they would show us their event 4 parse from Discord Tower. We would show them our event 4 parse, and I'd be like, listen, we did this with 48 people, and we beat it 6 minutes faster than CT did. And then, so we just kind of broke down the numbers, and we said, imagine if we had a full extra group. Imagine if we had 54 people. Imagine if we had this. Imagine if we weren't filling the raids with all these shitters who don't deserve to be here. And so just doing that is how we got people interested. That's how we got people interested coming over in Underfoot. Because we really weren't anybody at that time. We were just some pissant guild. So to get people really interested in us, we had to be creative. And so we knew we were going to be competitive because even though there is like a don't share parses kind of thing, everyone shared parses. So we had Triality's parses, we had CT's parses, we had Township's parses, who was really good back then as well. And we knew we absolutely dominated them without full raids. And so just using data like that is how we kind of got top recruits from those guilds to come over. Because we got a lot of people from Township Rebellion to come over. We got at the time who probably one of the top warriors in the game. He actually still plays. His name was Rune. Rune came over. Same thing. We had one of the best clerics from Township was Clarissa. She still plays. She came over. So it's like recruiting people from guilds who historically have been better than you, but we have actually done nothing, was absolutely crazy and unheard of. And just somehow we were able to put logic and math to it, and just unrelenting, uh, just me being unrelenting to these people. I mean, you could ask anyone who's been recruited by me will know, like, I will literally watch you and just hound you for days and days and days and days, and just hit you with data, hit you with facts, and hit you with charm. I mean, whatever I got to do to get you to come over. And then once you're over, you're hooked. So
I feel like that's kind of what happened with us, but in reverse when I was trying to get you guys to come over to our team on Ragefire and Lockjaw.
yeah, we had a good time at Ragefire, and once the classic ended, we were ready to. I was ready, and so we were a reign of insanity, and you guys were faceless on that server. And once Classic ended, I was just kind of like, whatever. I did Classic, so I just wanted to find everyone who's came over with Rain, and all the people who we recruited while we were on Ragefire, to just have a good home. And then that's when we met you, and I think Dima at the time might have been the actual leader. And so we just worked out a merge, and it ended up working really well for everybody. And then once the merge happened, I think I raided once or twice with you guys, 1 or 2 track-a-nons, and then I kind of said, all right, I got all my guys in a good home, and I'm gonna go back to focusing on live, and that's kind of what I did.
So if you remember, Dima was the guy who first reached out to you to try to make it happen. But Dima was our competitor. He led the competition on Lockjaw.
Oh, okay, yeah, you're right. Oh, you're right.
And we got the scoop that, we could just tell he was like too excited for the server transfers. Because remember, they opened up like free server transfers for like a 2-week period or something. And we could tell Dima was like really excited about it for some reason. And we were like, okay, which guild is he trying to poach over there? You know what I mean? And somehow or another, we figured out that it was you and in Reign of Insanity he was talking to. And so I slid in those DMs. And I think the big thing that got you to come with us at the time, if I remember correctly, was we were able to show like that they were using a lot of MacroQuest.
Yeah, and I'm super anti MacroQuest. You can ask the countless people over the years that I've removed personally from our realm of insanity for using MacroQuest, and I know to this day they still are very anti MacroQuest, and that's something I'm very proud of, was making sure we do everything the right way, and I'm glad that that is something that they still do and always have done. So
yeah, it's
yeah,
good.
now that you
it's
said
good
that,
for the
you are
game.
100% correct. Dima actually came to me first, but he was not you, and you pitched me to come to you, so you recruited me, man. That was great work, man. Great job.
Just doing my best, trying to get like you. Unfortunately, like at the time we were a really clean guild, but unfortunately, man, both Ragefire and Lockjaw, as far as I know, became just basically cesspools of MacroQuest within a year or two of that time. The populations died down and everyone just mass boxed shit.
And I think that was kind of the turnoff for me too, was that you just noticed that kind of thing. And also, I could also tell my involvement on the TLP was kind of taking away from the live guild, and I just had to make the live guild my priority. So once we had a real good opportunity to merge, and we took it, that allowed me to really focus on what mattered, which was the live guild. So I never really planned on being on Ragefire too long. I just wanted to check out Classic.
So, do you remember competing with Twisted Legacy on Ragefire?
Yeah, one of my good friends was in that guild. His name was Mike, and funny enough, Mike was actually, I don't know what his tune's name was. He's got way too many tunes, but Mike was actually in Realm of Insanity at the time, competing with us in Twist Legion. So that made live raids really fun.
That's what I was going to ask you about, because there was a guy. I think he raid leads for ROI now, or did for a while. Astral, you know what I mean? I know he was in both guilds, and he
Oh
was
yeah.
I think he was an officer in Twisted Legacy. So it's like, how do you balance that? You know what I mean? Like they're kind of pushing your shit in open world Ragefire, and then like on Wednesday you're like raiding with them in ROI.
So to complete fairness to Astral, he came to ROI after the Ragefire stuff ended, and it was kind of funny. We always like made these like funny guild notes for like new members, and I made his note. I always hated his Earth Pet or something stupid like that, and no one ever knew what it was about. It was because he played a mage, and he would always attack our fucking finnies with his mage pets and always kill steal us. And only him and I really knew what that was all about. But I still made me crack up to this day.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah, I love Astral. He's one of the good ones for real.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, though, he plays a monk, which are absolutely terrible in the live game now. But he's an outstanding guy.
That's what I've heard. Don't tell TLPers that they'll cry, because monks are good for like the first 5 years of TLP servers. They're like the best DPS.
Yeah, and then it just all downhill from there.
Yeah. So while we're on the topic of kind of like MacroQuest and stuff, what do you think? What do you think is going on at Darkpaw? Because it seems like every server, it honestly gets worse. It gets more widespread, and it seems like there's just so little action taken against it. They'll do like a suspension wave twice a year, but it does nothing, right? Like every 6 months, who fucking cares?
You hear whispers, but no one ever knows the facts. Like I know there was a big thing going around where they were like allowing it on some server if they banned it on other servers, but all that is conjecture, and no one really knows the facts. I know me personally, I always stayed away from it, and if I caught anyone using it, I no longer allow them to be part of our guild. But I hate it personally. The game is not hard enough to really need these tools.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it just kind of cheapens stuff when you have to cheat.
Yeah, absolutely, it does. All right, so you guys are going into Underfoot, right, for the first time, and you're an officer by then. What is it like doing those raids? Did you guys get to do them in beta at all?
So beta back then was a lot different than it is now. When you do beta now, they open all the raids, they post the strats on the beta forums. You have everything from A to B figured out. You can raid there for 8 days, 7 days a week if you want to. So there's resets. You go to the plane of knowledge and reset your timers. So beta back then was not like that. The only raids you got to beta test were the ones you were invited to. And the beta test, the one raid we beta tested from what I remember was actually Trial of Creation, which was a huge turning point in that expansion, but all the mechanics were turned off. So if you know that raid, you have to make the items and turn them into the guy. But when we did that trial, none of the items dropped. And that was like the raid leader, the developer, his name was Prathen. And Prathen was really kind of known for this, where he would not put any of the mechanics in beta. So anytime there was a Prathen raid, like we knew, okay, when this goes live, of course, down the road, we didn't know this in Underfoot, but down the road, we knew if it was a Prathen raid, we knew that something was going to be added to it because he never put the full raid on beta. So the only raid we saw was, from my recollection, the only number raid we saw was Trial of Creation, and it really wasn't even helpful because none of the mechanics were active. But outside of that, we had no real knowledge of any of those raids. We did them all on the fly.
Okay, wow. And you guys ultimately, did you guys win or did Triality win Underfoot?
No, we won Underfoot. Come on.
You won Underfoot. So how
Don't
did
be.
it feel
You
getting
know the
that?
answer to that question. Don't be. You knew the answer to that question. Come on.
How did it feel getting like the first worldwide first?
So we winning Underfoot was insane, but that whole expansion was crazy because it's just another one of these things where there's no reason why our guild, who had no experience in live, was competing, and really we started getting worldwide first right in the first tier. And seeing stuff like that it's just crazy to see. A guild who was TLP a couple years ago all of a sudden is getting top kills on new raids. Like if we look at, I want to say we were probably third or fourth on the Fippy raid. And I remember when we beat Fippy, I was in server-wide Monk and server-wide Paladin, which was two server-wide channels that I like being in. And we linked the kills, and all of a sudden, like, people from CT and Triality and all these other guilds are like, "Who the hell are you guys, like, beating these raids?" And then it was kind of crazy because I think we were second in that not Architects, but the other one, and I want to say we were first on the Beast, and that caused a lot of like drama when we beat the Beast because everyone thought we did some bullshit, but really our strategy was we had the Rangers use Weapon Shield to tank the ads at the end, and then we just burned down the big guy and killed the ads. We didn't do any rock tanking or any crazy stuff like Triality did. Let's just be honest. But yeah, no, we were just smart with our strats and went from there, and I think we swept pretty much the rest of tier one except for Breath. I think Triality beat us on Breath, but we got the rest of tier one. But what was crazy about that is a lot of those raids were just completely bonk. Like the Badger Mushroom raid, you literally couldn't beat it. Like it was physically impossible. Like a dev literally admitted afterwards, like, oh, the script never would have actually worked. It was broken to begin with. And that was a lot of Underfoot raids where you had to just figure out how to break the script to get it to work. But yeah, so we beat tier one first, and that was really our first like tier win. And then from there, like people really started taking it seriously. I want to say we beat Click Our Queen, I think a solid week, maybe even 10 days before the second guild beat it. So we had a pretty good jump on tier one, which was again just crazy. And that's a lot of times too when you start winning raids, then you get more recruits from other guilds. So seeing these firsts come out was a real big stepping stone for our recruiting power too.
Yeah, at that point, once you start getting those first ones, it's like you start to smell blood in the water a little bit, right? You're like, oh shit, like this is real now. It's not just like a chance, like it's fucking happening.
Yeah, beating Fippy like fourth or fifth is one thing, but then when you beat Beast a week before anybody, and then you beat Click Our Queen a week before anybody, all of a sudden now you're taken a lot more seriously as a threat. Um, and I want to say before those raids, I don't think the big guilds at the time really thought we were anything. But after that happened, they realized that oh, we got a player in this expansion now.
Did you see a huge influx in apps and interest in the guild once you guys won Underfoot overall?
Yeah, definitely. You're the top dog now. Once we beat Underfoot, we were top dog, and that made recruiting easier. That made people want. We were the destination now. There's always people who wanted to be in kind of the underdog spot, which we were the underdogs for Underfoot, but everything past Underfoot, we were not the underdogs at all. We were quite the opposite.
Right. Now, did people say like, "Oh, it was a fluke," that kind of thing, just after your first win?
Yeah, a lot of people thought even tier one in Underfoot was a fluke. We kept hearing that from Triality and CT and the other guilds at the time, but you know, it's just because we were new. It's like if a brand new boxer comes on the scene and beats Floyd Mayweather, yeah, it's probably a fluke. But unfortunately, we weren't a fluke. Well, fortunately, sorry, we weren't a fluke.
So, were you guys nervous going into House of Thule? Did you feel like you were going to be okay, or were you worried about defending the title?
I want to say the one thing we had over other guilds is that we were like excited to defend our title. There wasn't really that attrition that a lot of guilds get. Um,
Yeah.
the only thing we got was better during House of Thule because after Underfoot was in Farm, we really went on a crazy recruiting pitch. We got some really good players in, and it really solidified the guild in whole. So yeah, we were really excited for House of Thule. That was the to prove it that we weren't just one time one and done one hit wonders. So we really went focused. So I think that's part of the advantage we had too is we never had that attrition that other guilds had because they were farming for years and years and years. We now are champions. We want to defend our title, and everyone was just super excited about it. And then you get new people in. A lot of the old underfoot guards stayed on board. We didn't really have a crazy amount of attrition, which is really a part of the reasons for success in those expansions as well. I mean, obviously you lose people here and there, but you hear of some guilds losing 30, 40 people. You know,
Wow.
during a cycle. We maybe lost 10 and probably brought in 20 who were, arguably better than the 10 we lost, so I mean
Right.
when you do that, you win expansions, and that's, kind of been what our what we've been doing.
Something about that motivation, that passion, you know what I mean? Like you can't fake it. You can't force it. But when it's there, it's like unbeatable.
Yeah, no, and that's actually one of the things that really even to today the guild still has that. We want to be the best. We're going to do everything we can to shave 10 seconds off of this raid because that's kind of what raids are now is, who can shave 25 seconds off of this event to be the first one to do it. So it's a lot different in the live game now than it was, say, let's say back in Underfoot or even expansions after Underfoot.
Yeah. How do you feel about the change kind of in direction EverQuest has had where it's gone from like an expansion comes out and there's like weeks as people try to grind through it versus now like they drop a third of an expansion in 30 minutes in it's done and the winner is won by 15 seconds or 80 seconds. You know what I mean? How do you feel about that?
I'm personally not a big fan of it, but I understand that the business side of it where they want the content to be accessible to everybody right at the start, and you know hiding content behind flagging, you know maybe wasn't popular for a lot of people who couldn't complete the flagging as fast as possible. I don't like how races are won now by who gets a less laggy instance, and who can zone out faster. Those criteria really shouldn't be what determines the best skill, but unfortunately, that is what determines the best skill now. And being fully honest, if they went back to the old way of doing it, RY would still win. I don't think there's much competition for the guild, and there probably won't ever be, if we're being honest.
Right, but it would be a much more interesting race. But like you get to watch it over days and weeks. You know what I mean? It's like watching a show versus like watching a YouTube short. You know what I mean?
And I think that's what made Underfoot so interesting is because the race was literally every day for months and months and months. Raid would be beat by these guys, and now it's like, oh, okay, 18 guilds beat all 3 raids day one or whatever it is now, and it's just not as exciting, I don't think, because there's no race component to it anymore. It's again now, instead of racing over a marathon, it's now a sprint for the 3 raids to get done as fast as you can. Which ultimately the goal is to win races, and that's still what the guild's doing, and that's still what they're going to do, I think, until the servers close. Um, but it's just the races are a little different now than they used to be.
Yeah. Well, I hope that they'll eventually turn the tide and go back. I don't know that I think they will, but I hope they do that, because, like, I mean, just imagine, like, the margins are so thin right now. Imagine losing a race because your fucking raid leader's power went out for a minute, right? Or, like, just something stupid like that. But that's the reality that you could legit face with the current set of raid meta.
That is the actual reality, because if you get a laggy instance, you're going to lose that raid. And I want to say there was maybe something like that happened this year where ROI
Yeah,
just
ROI got second place in the second content release, but overall won the expansion. It's also stupid, in my opinion, how they do like three releases for one expansion.
Yeah, it's absolutely absurd. And and again, the laggy instance being the determining factor between who wins and doesn't win is absolutely absurd. And that's another thing I don't really like that either. I think they're working on the lag right now, but I don't know. I just think I think it's kind of dumb that an instance being a good instance or bad instance can determine who wins a tier or wins a raid, especially when everybody gets the starting line at the same point. Now there's no way to actually widen your gap, like in House of Full you could split raid, or in VOA we actually would raid at 4 a.m. to get days off of our raids. You can't do that anymore. So there is no more. It's just everyone logs in same time. Hope you get a good instance. Boom, execute what you've done on beta for the last 6 months or 6 weeks. Sorry, So again, different race, but at the end of the day, the goal is winning races, and that's what ROI is going to do and continue to do.
Yeah, new meta. Everyone in the guild has to live in San Diego.
Yeah, I guess that's how you could rent a house for a week, send
Well, I
everybody
mean, I
out.
guess if you're Silent Redemption, like at least 3 of your members are in San Diego, right? They're in the building.
Yeah, 3 of them, 3 of them are in the building at least, maybe more. Who knows?
Yeah, they got some good. They got a real good connection over there
Yeah,
in the
it's
fucking
crazy.
Darkpaw
Yeah,
headquarters.
it's like they know those raids down to the code. It's insane.
Yeah, I can't wait to get the fucking emails after that. Okay,
Well, I don't play
so
anymore, so I can talk as much shit as I want. So that's the best part.
right, yeah, they're gonna send a hit squad to get me. Miko, I'm sorry. All right, but so really, you guys still had something to prove for a while. And when did you get to the point where, like, people had to say, finally, okay, this is the new normal. ROI is the top dog. No one's gonna easily come out and beat them, and the gap is huge.
Well, even after we beat House of Full first, that's people still were like, oh, whatever. They're still a drip in the pan. Like a lot of guilds like Triality and CT, like they knew we were good, but I don't think they really respected how good we were until I went and got all their best players to come to my guild, our guild. Sorry. So after we beat House of Thul, we went on a. So after House of Thul ended, I actually became guild leader. So for VOA, that was like, and my goal for VOA was I wanted to make the best raid roster that had ever been put together in the history of EverQuest. And I
Do you
want to
feel
say
like
I
you did
came
it?
pretty. Honestly, I'm being honest. Our VOA roster was absolutely stacked. I mean, we had just from top to bottom some of the best players to ever play this game in every class. I mean, our VOA roster was absolutely stacked. I mean, it was just incredible, and you could see just how much we dominated VOA. The whole cycle, we lost one raid, and every other raid we beat hands down. And the only reason why we lost one raid is Triality. I'm going to give props to Corkin and their team here. They did a 3 a.m. raid to get a quicker cycle of their books to cut a day off of their lockouts. So they got to tier 2 a night before we did. So they were able to go beat Beast Domain. But unfortunately for Triality, they were not able to beat the other 2 raids. So ultimately, it just didn't do anything for them except for to take away our clean sweep. Um,
That's spicy though. I like that they did that.
It was spicy, and I was like, "Oh, damn!" So we actually started doing that going forward until they took kind of keying away. But yeah, we were like, "Oh, damn! Well, this is the meta. We're gonna evolve." So we started doing the for the morning raids, which it's always funny because those always ended up being our best raids. No one missed emotes. Nobody was late. It was just those are always the best raids. Everyone just wanted to one shot them, get them out.
If you're gonna
But
wake
yeah,
up at
no,
4 a.m., you're like, you better not fuck up, right? Like, no one wants to be here right now. Get it done.
exactly. And to the point of VOA, that Rubek Psychic raid was actually pretty hard. And it just destroyed Torality when they tried it that first night. And the other raid, which I want to say was Resplendent Temple, was bugged. So you couldn't miss an emote if you were in the towers, otherwise it would wipe. So you literally had to be perfect in the towers. And so we were perfect in the towers. We were able to beat it the first night we were in there. It ended up getting patched later to where you could fail an emote and not wipe, but the day it came out, it was bugged. Which, if you are in these races, you realize a lot of these raids come out pretty bugged, and you just have to learn how to overcome bugs rather than content sometimes. And that's
Yeah.
kind of what rating these before they get fixed kind of is. But yeah, no, props to Cork, and I got to give Triality credit. They came at us in VOA, but unfortunately, they fell a little short. And after doing tier 3 or tier 4, whatever the last tier was came out, we just pulled away. I don't think anybody even came close after that.
Now, back then, if you, and still to this day, I think, right? Like, if you got into a fresh raid and you wiped, you didn't get a timer though, right? You could just keep, if you had the wherewithal, you could stay there 12 hours that day, wiping over and over and over again, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm surprised that they didn't just do that. You know what I mean? Like,
So I wasn't in their raid, obviously, but from what I understand, I think they raided a solid 6-8 hours that night to try to get their raids down, and they just couldn't do it. They just started people logging off, or you'd have to ask them. I don't know, but
yeah,
we were definitely not on that server doing who all triality. Seemed as though they were in for the whole time to see what they were up to trying to see where we were
yeah,
at. We definitely were not doing that.
yeah. I'd be doing that. Be like doing everything you can to get any like little piece of info.
Oh, I 100% was on there doing that. Yeah, we were the whole
Yeah,
time. We were, oh, they're stuck in Resplendent. Oh, they're stuck in Ruback. And we knew they didn't beat it. Otherwise, they'd be talking smack.
right,
Um,
right.
and since there was no smack to be talked except for that one raid, you know, it was funny. I really think them doing that really pissed us off. Because when we got to that tier, like the raids, we never went through a Resplendent Temple where we didn't fail an emote. Like that was unheard of. And all of a sudden, we're doing it without failing emotes. Like, Trality has really pissed us off there in that tier, and I think that was so thank you for that. But yeah, no, then we ended up crushing the rest of the VOA after that.
That's right, man. Rising to the occasion. Have that clutch play.
Yeah, there's always
Um,
little things you had to do, and every expansion, whoever was our second tier or second place, or who would, there was always like a thing that should have happened, like a guild should have beat us, but they wiped on the last raid, or it's just little things, and when you win, and that's kind of what the guild just has been doing ever since we became a live guild is win.
that's been my experience too. Like anytime you win anything where a lot of people are competing, there's just like 1,000 people who we're gonna get you, but insert excuse here, right? Like every guild, every person faces more or less the same adversity, and the guild that wins found a way to not get stopped by random bullshit, and the people who lose were not flexible or didn't think about it in advance, or they just couldn't overcome the random little shit that pops up.
Yeah, of all of our expansion wins, there's very few times where a guild, you know, had no chance of beating us. Like Underfoot, we handily won Underfoot. House of Thule, we could have lost House of Thule. Triality actually beat Event 5 in Discord Tower before we did. We knew about the bugged instance, or not, sorry, the bug of the raid where you just had to kill all the ads at the exact same time, but we couldn't execute. And then we logged in the next night, and thankfully it was corrected. But I mean, even if it wasn't, I'm pretty confident we would have did it. So let's say they beat Event 5 and stay on to beat 6 or 7, they could have beat us that expansion. But, they were not able to execute. VOA, nobody was touching us at VOA. I'm fairly confident in that. Reign of Fear, we could have lost Reign of Fear because of how they did the raids. The raids cannot like tiered or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and I want to give props to MS right now. They actually had a little better strat than us in tier 1. They got all so back then the raids didn't open. You had to like do all the quests, and their quest team actually was a lot faster than ours. But once we got into the raids, we actually just were able to raid a lot faster than they were. And then they actually raided at 3 in the morning on that last raid to try to get an expansion win from us, but they just fell a little short too. So, and that was an expansion we could have, or maybe that was Call of Forsaken. I kind of get those ones. That was Call of Forsaken. I'm sorry, I'm getting those a little mixed up. But it's just everything here or there could have happened, but we just always found a way to win.
So you mentioned that in House of Thule, you became the guild leader. You took over from Swag, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Do you know how long Swag had been the guild leader? Like he took over from Zygon, who was like the classic leader.
So I'm not 100% positive, but I believe Swag became guild leader once ROI came to Druzzil Ro, and I think Zygon and that he might have been guild leader before that. I'm really not sure, but he was the guild leader when I joined ROI, and I believe he was the guild leader for um, the live merge. But I'm not positive. I wasn't. I wasn't there.
And so, while you were there, he was the guild leader for maybe like another year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah, he was the leader for Underfoot, and then right until House of Thule ended. So after we beat House of Thule, he retired, and then I took over as leader.
Okay, and what do you think of him as a guild leader?
Swag and I have had our drama. Being honest, there was a couple drama stories between us. I can clear the air right now. I don't have any hard feelings against them. At the time, maybe. But again, when we first started this, I always talked about there's all these 1 in a million things that kind of have happened. And one of the things that could have happened is, in Underfoot, there was actually a time where I was ready to leave ROI to join Triality. And I actually reached out to them, and their recruiter at the time had no idea who I was. And I remember,
Shit.
I remember saying to, I forget exactly who it was, but I was like, if their recruiter doesn't know who is essentially an officer and what is their biggest competition, like this guy doesn't have their shit together. Like if any Triality officer reached out to me, they would have been in RY the next day.
Right. You be
And
like, how can I make this happen? Like right fucking now.
exactly. But they weren't really aware who I was, and I still bust Corkins balls about this to today. I mean, I literally the other day I literally just messaged him on Facebook and said, "Remember that time you could have had me, but you didn't because you're a dumbass." So we kind of make jokes about it now, but it was just one of those things. Like, what if I go to Triality? What if
could have flipped the whole thing?
I mean, you never know. I don't want to say that I'm the only reason why ROI has been successful. I mean, I'm highly confident they could have still went on and been successful with or without me, but you never know. But yeah, so we had a little run in Swag and I over. Or I don't want to air any dirty laundry. But we had a run in during that expansion where I ended up getting guild removed, and I was not happy with that. So I was ready to bounce, but instead, they didn't know who it was basically. So Swag and I made up, and then we went from there. Swag at the time was what Rail City needed, though. He was, kind of a, we're going to do it this way, this way, this way. We're going to get everything done. We're going to be the best. If you have a problem with it, get the fuck out. I mean, that's kind of what he was, and that's really what ROI needed at the time. And then I want to say, after HOA, maybe I was kind of what ROI needed at the time. I'm more of a people person. I got, maybe better people skills. Um, you know, good at recruiting. I'm good at conflict resolution. So a little more level headed maybe. So I was kind of what RO needed at the time. And then, once I was stepped down or left in Reign of Fear, whatever expansion it was, Aldrin took over, and Aldrin was what RO needed at the time. Very similar to me, but better than me in many ways. Aldrin's a great dude, and he's gonna do great things, and he's continuing to do great things. I think he'll probably lead this guild to server wide first until this server's closed. And I have nothing but respect for Aldrin and the live team right now, and I consider them all friends, and I love pretty much everybody who's in the guild. So no, it's just one of those things where you never know if their recruiter, who I'm not going to name because she knows who she is and she's probably going to listen to this and kick herself that I'm talking smack about her. But if she knew who I was, maybe I go over and maybe we don't. I mean, I think ROI still would have won underfoot because at that time we had beaten Brell and no one else had been close. So I don't think that would have mattered. But what happens past. I mean, so you never really know. But I do like to bust Corkin's chops about the what ifs. Yeah, it's just one of those things that who knows if happens different. What happens,
I mean, the reality is you grab one person and then suddenly like their three friends join. You know what I mean? And each of those friends has another friend that might come. And it really quickly becomes like a flood that can just like totally break a guild
No, there
or at
was
least weaken them.
literally no bullshit. There was at least 6 people who were ready to come with me, and they were all like my close friends. And you know, it would have been crazy if it had happened. And maybe they wouldn't have came. I mean, you really don't know. But at the time, they're like, "Yeah, let's go." This is bullshit. Like this, he shouldn't have did that.
Right.
But
And it's
ultimately,
like,
my goal always had been to try to keep as much drama and try to keep everybody kind of on the same page. And
yeah.
so once they really kind of pissed me off by not knowing who I was like, all right, well, maybe we need to just reconcile and just get this expansion win, and we can fix everything afterwards. And we did. And for House of Thole, we had a little drama as well. God, it feels weird talking about it, but yeah, we kind of. I'm not proud of what we did. I think it was necessary. So basically, what was happening was we weren't really being allowed to raid. Swag had gotten a new job, so he was ending our raids early, and it was really pissing a lot of us off because we were like, you can just kind of let us raid, man. You don't gotta make us log off. So Phil fans actually contacted Zygon, who was the founder of ROI, and he actually petitioned to get Swag removed as guild leader, and they actually passed guild leader to me, and that caused all this drama. But I ended up smoothing it over and passing it back to Swag so we could finish the expansion. And then shortly after the expansion, Swag retired, and then I took over from there. But yeah, a lot of drama. But after that, I tried to keep it as drama free as I possibly could. I think that was one thing I was good at, but not perfect at it. And then I know obviously you can't never have drama, but yeah, no, it's just one of those crazy things that who knows,
Yeah, I mean, it really is. I mean, like losing 6 people probably wouldn't have killed ROI, but Triality was fucking good at the time, and adding 6 people from ROI to Triality might have turned that close House of Thule to lean the other direction. You know what I mean? And if you heard the story about Triality, why they think they lost House of Thule, basically like Mendix kind of inadvertently fucked them over. And it's like you win that one expansion, and who knows how it goes the rest of the way. Suddenly, that streak, the endless streak of wins that ROI has produced, suddenly for one brief moment in time is just a fluke. You know what I mean? You go back to
I mean,
it's
yeah,
like literally the
exactly.
second time on home plate swinging the bat, and it's just like who knows where things would have gone. It's such a crazy time to look back at that moment versus now where it seems like everything is ironclad and unchangeable.
Yeah, I also don't have that high of opinion of myself that I would have personally changed the entire course of EverQuest history. But you really never know because, like you said, let's say I go to Trally and I start recruiting for them, and all the people I got to come, I come to Trally instead. I mean, let's say I'm in Trally, then I can't recruit from Trally because I'm there. I mean, so you never really know. But it's just again, it's just like we talked when this started. It's just all these one in a million things happen to get me in the role, to get me in the guild, and to get the guild where it is. And ultimately, winners find a way to win, and that's what I'm about, and that's what the guild's about.
So, what was it like when you found out Triality was closing their doors? What'd you think?
Bittersweet. We competed with them for a long time. I consider them a good competitor, but never want to see a guild fail, especially in the live game, because a failing guild is never a good sign for the game longevity. But didn't want to see them fail, but ultimately they were a competitor for a long time, so you know, no hard feelings between them. But it was sad, but also kind of not sad at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, like the day before your competition dies, you're like, "Fuck those guys! I can't wait for that guild to die." And then when you log in and you hear that they died the next day, you're like, it feels a little bit emptier. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because they really were our biggest kind of like, and I don't want to. At the time, we really didn't take Crimson Tempest too seriously, even though they were, good. Um, but Centrality actually dying kind of made our biggest competition. I want to say maybe Mashin Shin, maybe CT. I mean, I don't know. Every expansion, someone else tried to come at us, but no, that was bittersweet. And I want to give again major props to Corkin for like coming to us and be like, hey, I want us to come over and like raid with y'all. I know you got a lot of my friends, and it took a lot of I don't know what the exact word is, but to swallow your pride like that and to admit you want to come join what you had kind of blamed for destroying what you've been working for so hard, I think took a lot from him, and I'm really glad he did it because, like I said, Corcoran is my guy, and really happy to have met him, and I'm glad he finally came over. And again, it's just so funny because if we had talked at all during those years we were competing, I mean, who knows? We probably would have been even better friends. But it happened the way it happened, and everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the thing about Corkin is like Corkin, the character that you see on the website, is cocky. He's arrogant. You know what I mean? He's like a swashbuckler a little bit, but Corkin, the guy, is super humble, and that's why he's able to come over like that.
Yeah, I mean, if roles were reversed, I don't think I could have did what he did, and I give him a lot of props for that.
Yeah,
Although
me
I'm
either. I
still
mean,
pissed that
go down with the ship.
he stole my house plot. The only way he'd come over was he got my freaking house plot, but I let him have it because whatever.
Yeah. Um. Man, so yeah, that must have been like cool, but sucks at the same time. So, what expansion was the last one that you led ROI?
Uh, I want to say one of the Kunark ones, maybe.
Like Empires of Kunark or Ring of Scale, TBL? Did you do Miritus with them?
I did Meritus, but I want to say I was an officer for Meritus.
Hmm.
So we had some drama. Again, like I said, I'd like to avoid drama, but unfortunately, there was some drama, and I ended up leaving ROI for a little bit, and I
Whoa.
joined. Yeah, no, I left ROI. We joined. Me and my wife went and joined Inverse Logic, and then we went to Crimson Tempest after that. And I want to give props to both of those guilds for letting us come over, and I want to say on the record there was never any ill intent. I never went there to try to recruit your people. We really were just trying to find a place to enjoy and just kind of get away from everything. But unfortunately, rating again gave us the bug, and we just wanted to get back to ROI. And again, I want to say on the record, thank you to those guilds for letting me come over. I had a great time. It was so fun being with you guys. Please know everything we did, nothing was malicious. But at the end of the day, we just needed to go home, and there was nothing against either of you guilds. You guys are both great. I love both of you guys. Um, so I just want to clear it up, and we ended up going back for, I want to say it was Burning Lands. I don't really remember the exactly which expansion it was, but so then Aldrin kind of took over. I kind of stepped back, but then when I came back, I was a member for a little bit. I kind of got the bug that wanted to do a little more than I was doing. So maybe a few months later, after all the kind of like the drama had phased out and we kind of all became friends again, I got promoted up back to officer, which is cool. I just kind of got to recruit and kind of let Aldrin deal with the drama, which was was fine. And then I think it was called Terror of Luklin was the last expansion I played. I didn't play the new one really at all. I
Yeah,
don't even know
yeah.
what it's called. But yeah, no. So Aldrin has kind of been running the ship here for the last few expansions. He's been doing a great job, and I think he's was the perfect guy to take over for me. So again, it's just kind of like Swag was the perfect guy at that time, and I was probably the perfect choice for when I took over, and I think Aldrin was the perfect choice when he took over, and I think he'll probably lead the ROI until it's the servers are no longer making content. If I'm being honest.
So I get the sense that this might be something you don't want to go too much into, but like, were you ousted? Was it drama that pushed you out of the guild, or like, you know what I mean?
I left on my own. I didn't really want to get too into it. But again, like my whole goal was to avoid drama, and unfortunately, I caused a shit ton of it. Um, and I did what I did, and I'm sorry if it offended people, but at the end of the day, I would probably do it again, and that's why Aldrin needed to be leader because, um, I was just at that time too many people had lost trust in me to make unbiased calls or, um, you know, but again, I did not mean to hurt anybody. I was just doing what I thought was right, and I'm glad we had smoothed it over and got back to where we can all be cool and friends again. But again, I never meant to hurt anybody. I was just trying to do what I thought was right.
So you're saying that I could join ROI one day, right? And I could get kicked out twice and still potentially be the guild leader.
No, I don't think I'll ever be guild leader or even want to be guild leader again. And I was never kicked out. I left on my own. I want to be crystal clear about that.
What about the first one though?
Oh, I guess you swag got me. Yeah. Okay. I
Yeah. So do you
forgot
ever
about
like
that one.
during your tenure as guild leader, you ever like kick someone and think like this guy now has part of the resume to take over this place one day?
No, because I remember how super pissed off I was when I got kicked out for no reason. That if I ever moved somebody, it was because they were no longer going to be in the guild. It wasn't. I would never remove anybody for fun. Maybe once or twice, but I knew how serious people took it as I took it seriously. So that was something I didn't do unless it was like really called for.
Yeah. Now, from talking to you, I get a sense that you had to deal with a lot of what I call the drama tax, which is like just like the cumulative exhaustion that you get, the fatigue you get from dealing with like whiny little man children every day who cry about shit that doesn't matter. And they just fucking like DM you at midnight, at 4 a.m., at like right before raids, right after raids, and it just never ends. And because there's so many people that you're in charge of, like they might only cry to you once a week, but it's every single day for you.
Yeah, I don't think anyone who hasn't done it really understands how thankless and how challenging it is to lead a guild. Um, so for basically 9 or 10 years, I want to say I led ROI, and for those 9 or 10 years to keep the unit cohesive and together, I mean, it was not a small feat. And again, I don't sit here and say that I think I'm the best. I don't think I'm the best. I think I tried really hard. I think I worked really hard. Um, I don't think I'm above anybody or anything like that. But you know, relatively drama free, except for when your drama can be little to putting 5 fingers up and you can name the 5 biggest dramas over 10 years. I think you've done pretty well, and that kind of was where we are at. Is there was expansions where we didn't have any drama, expansions where there was some drama. You're always going to get petty people because when you get really competitive people, they all want to be the best. So you get a berserker complaining that they got a bar they didn't like, or
Oh
so just
God.
dealing with these petty squabbles for years and years and years and years and years and years and years, which most people have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. Yeah, it absolutely wears on you. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, it definitely wears on you. And that was another thing too. Becoming an officer and kind of letting Aldrin handle most of that took a lot off my plate too. But the craziest thing is, even though it's so thankless and it's so unrewarding, it still was super rewarding, and you miss it. Like there's so many times where I'm just like, oh man, remember during this expansion where he was having this fight and he was so mad. And so even though it's a thankless job, and it's it is really, it's something you look back on fondly, I'd say.
Your mind tricks you, man. Your mind tricks you. It's like I think back on basic training, and I'm like, man, that was such a fun time. I wish I could go back, but I guarantee it would suck. You just like for some reason the good times stick with you a lot. You know what I mean? And like I can remember the bad times of guild leading, but I don't feel the feeling. But I can feel all those expansion wins. You know what I mean? I could put myself in that space and like I can feel triumphing over a competition and everyone being hyped up. And right after an expansion win is great because like when you're making strategies and you're directing how the expansion will go, a lot of times people like doubt you. You know what I mean? You're like, dog, I've done this like for 10 years now. And the day of the expansion win, everyone trusts you like 100 like 1,000%. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't want to say it's like Stockholm syndrome or whatever, but you definitely, when you think about it, you think about all the highs, and then like you really got to dig into like all the bullshit, kind of like drama.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, I can literally, when I think of like all of our like wins we shouldn't have had, or first time wins, or expansion wins, like those are what come and pop into my head, and then the drama bullshit is this kind of like off to the side, like you don't really think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it's there, but you know, you don't really think about it at the time. And looking back on it, you know, you really try to think of more of the fun stuff than the drama or the
I,
things that weren't good. You know.
I had this guy in my guild, just like you were talking about with the group composition shit. That drives me insane. But I had this guy, he was a monk, and he was crying to me about how he was going to take a break because he didn't have a bard. I forget if it was a bard or a shaman in his group this particular raid. And I went back to every single raid because we save the raid roster for every raid we ever do, so we know who was in what group with who forever, the whole history of the guild. And I went back like 6 months, and I was like, dude, in the last like 2 expansions, because obviously like 3 month expansions on TLP, I was like, in the last 2 expansions, there have been like 3 or 4 times that you didn't have a shaman and a bard in your group, and you're gonna take a break because of that. And I was just like, don't, like, you're not taking a break, you're fucking out. Stop being a pussy.
No, and that's the stuff you deal with every day. As raid leader and as guild leader, every single day you get those complaints, and that's one thing I did too. Is I always had really good raid leaders. You know, shout out to Sadavo, shout out to Bloody Dagger, shout out to Aldrin. You know, I really kind of let them handle the raids, so I can handle all like the administrative and complaint kind of things. So you know, neither of us got too overwhelmed. And then we also would have the other officers doing their stuff too, just to keep the everything running cohesively. So that was one thing I always did, was try to have really really strong raid leaders. And then when you're making your raid strats, I tried to be integral. Puzzle raids were kind of like my specialty. I was really good at the puzzle raids. Even like in Underfoot Trial Creation, which probably was the most challenging puzzle raid ever put into the game. That was 100% me. I mean, I did all the combines. I made spreadsheets in Excel. We even found like a little bug. I don't know if you remember EQ players, but there was a way you can go into EQ players and type an item number in, and it'll tell you what the item name was, even if it wasn't discovered yet. So we kind of figured out like what items were good and what items were bad. And that trial creation too, like you've done. So you have to build the 6 items or whatever, but there's like fake items you can build like that you think are real items. So the whole thing was just like a complete troll. But yeah, puzzle raids have always been my jam. So with the puzzle raids, I'd get a little more involved with strat, but typically I'd kind of let the raid leaders run the raid, and I would kind of run the guild, and that's just kind of what's successful for us. And not having too much on one person, I think, also kind of alleviates that. Because I can't imagine dealing with all the complaints and also trying to lead raids like that. That would have just been crazy. So that's why I always make sure I just had a really strong raid leader, and those 3 guys over the years. Again, I want to give them shout outs. Absolutely incredible. Couldn't have done it without them. They know that. Everyone knows that. But I'm really, really thankful for them, and excited that they're continuing to rock it today.
Sorry about that. I had a little technical difficulty. Do you know if Aldrin is still leading raids while he's the guild leader, or has he let the other guys handle that mostly?
I believe he still leads raids and he leads the guild. And what's crazy about Aldrin is he does it on 2 guilds. He also does the same like thing for the Front of E guild called Fahala, where he leads that guild and leads those raids too. So this dude, I mean, he's absolutely insane. Bleeds Everquest. I could not do what he does. I don't know how he leads 2 guilds and not only leads them, but leads them both successfully. Just insane.
Yeah, is his name on FV Aldrin as well, spelled a little differently, maybe?
I think he's Zulak or something on FV. I'm not 100% sure. I should probably know that though.
Was he a like a bard, a Vashir bard or something?
He's a Vashir Bard in ROI. I believe he's a Beast Lord on FV.
So kind of like a crazy story. Back before I made my first guild ever in EverQuest, well, this is probably like 2010. Yeah, it was definitely like 2010. I was playing on Fronavi and some other servers, and I wanted to start a guild on the server and make it the top guild. You know what I mean? But I had no chops. I had no idea what it would take. And I had a friend who was a Vashir bard named Aldrin. And and I heard about Fippy, and I was like, hey, I'm going to go to Fippy and make a guild there, because I can start like fresh and classic and have like, on the ground floor kind of experience. And he was like, oh, I'm going to go join this big raid guild. And I was like, all right, man, well, you should come to Fippy with me, but I hope you're good with your big raid guild. I just think it would be cooler to start your own guild and become the best rather than join the best guild. And I at the time I didn't know shit about what live guilds were top guilds, you know what I mean? And I always have wondered, after I saw he became the guild leader of ROI, if that was the same dude that I talked to all those years ago.
It might be because he's a Vashir bard right now in ROI. That's his jam. So maybe that's a question for him though.
Yeah. I was back then, I was like a froglock rogue named Zizek, after like a Russian philosopher. But yeah, I mean, that's crazy. I should hit him up and ask, see if if that's the case, because it's just like such a small world. Did you you listen to the Quarkin episode, right?
Yeah, I did. Yes.
You remember the part where I talked about the ranger who told me he'd think about me when he was fucking his girlfriend?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that episode came out, and somebody hit me up on Twitch, and it was like a guy who is like a regular viewer for my Twitch. Like, we chat and stuff. And he's like, dude, I can't believe it. And he sent me a fucking screenshot. He's like, I just logged into my character. Here you go. And it's the goddamn ranger. Like, how crazy is that? He's like, by the way, she's my wife now.
This game, man, that kind of shit happens all the time.
Yeah, like it's nuts. Like, just happenstance. 20 years later, he and I are chatting again. You know what I mean? It's just crazy. But yeah, it's wild. So at this point, you've said a few times you think that ROI is gonna hold the crown all the way to the end of EverQuest, right?
I would be extremely surprised if they didn't.
Why are you so confident in it?
Because I've been part of it, and I know the team that's there now are all lifers, and I know what we're about, and I don't see it changing. You don't. So many people have now been in ROI for so long that's just, they're just lifers, and there's just people who are there, care a lot about being the best and care a lot about winning. And it's so many times we have won. It doesn't seem possible that we'll ever lose, and I hope that we never do.
What would it take? What would it take for another guild to come out of nowhere and beat you guys?
The entire ROI retiring tomorrow.
Okay, so you guys are not sleeping on the competition. You're still going hard. Like, you're hungry. Like, you play like you're the underdog still.
Well, yeah, we're constantly evolving. Like I said, every time the meta changes, we want to beat the meta. So when the meta was raiding at 3 in the morning, we raided at 3 in the morning. When the meta was being online at 3 o'clock, when all the raids unlocked, we were online at 3 o'clock. When the meta was being the fastest group to unlock the raids, you needed to get all the group missions done. We got all the group missions done. The meta was split raiding, in House of Thul. I mean, so whatever was required to be the best, that is constantly what we're doing, and we have constantly evolved to make sure we are constantly the best. And and Aldrin is super smart. The officers are all really smart, really good, and I don't see that group of people letting ROI slide to not being the best in the game ever. Not to mention, I also don't really see. I don't see any other guild or group really being able to compete. It's ROI just has such a talent advantage over, from what I've seen. And again, no shade throwing at any other guild, because I know if ROI does lose, they're gonna probably clip this and meme me. But I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, I mean, even guilds like Silent Redemption with like 2-3 devs can't beat you guys, right? So
Allegedly, there's devs in that guild that don't.
right.
Allegedly.
Want to hear a fucking crazy story?
Yeah, of course.
So there's a live guild who I won't mention the name of, that basically had a staff member in the guild, right? And their guild leader asked the dev, like, hey, can you show me everybody in the guild who's using MacroQuest? Like, do you guys have that information? And the dev gave him the information, so they could get the information. But not only that, dude, he didn't just say like, oh, here are the players, right? He showed them right down to the directory on their computer where they had it. You know what I mean? So
Still,
if
it's insane
my
to me they have this data and they still let it go on. I don't know.
yeah, they have the data and they still let it go on, but also think about the fact that like on my computer, there's like a users directory, right? And it splits it out into like everyone and then like my real name. Imagine that your MacroQuest file was like in users real name Qulas fucking MacroQuest, right? And then imagine a video game developer shared that with your guild leader.
I'd be pretty pissed. Yeah,
It
that
seems
pissed me
like
off.
it seems like something that is kind of like illegal. I mean, I'm only an expert in bird law, okay, but I I get a fucking bad feeling about it. I get a real bad feeling about it. And I know that this is a true story because I've seen the screenshots. Like I've seen the directory paths, you know what I mean, with all that shit. And now think about the tactical advantage it gives you as a guild leader. If you know all the people who are using and you know that there's going to be a wave coming up before the next expansion, and you could say, hey, I know you're cheating. Fucking stop it. Otherwise, you will not be able to be on day one raids because you'll be suspended.
Well, if you're dumb enough to use it during a current expansion, then you should be banned. You know, that's. I mean, I know when I was there, if you got caught using MQ, you're gone. I know they're still doing that today, and that's one thing I love about ROI is that they keep it clean as can be imaginable. And
Right,
I'm
but there's
pretty
a lot of guilds
confident.
that are not. They're not doing that. Right, they're using it for a tactical advantage.
I mean, I don't like to speculate. I know a lot of people talk shit about what they thought we did. But most of that is always false. But I can confidently say if they gave alternate lists of people, everyone on that list would be no longer in ROI, and that's one thing that I love about him and love about our guild. Is that we've always kept it as clean as we could.
No, I definitely get that. I get the leadership mentality and everything. But let me tell you, dude. If fucking Lance Armstrong got busted for using steroids, top guilds and EverQuest are fucking using MacroQuest. It's the same. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying ROI is, but there's a lot of guilds that want to be number one. And if they are trying their best, and I believe some of them are really trying their best to beat you, they will do anything. And that means cheating too. But
Well,
I'm
I
not.
think
Again,
it'd
the
be
guild. I need to be totally clear. The guild I was talking about that I didn't name was not ROI. It was a guild that is like second or third place kind of finisher. Um, so yeah, I mean, just like there are people who are cheating for advantage and still losing, and there is real shady shit happening with the dev or two that are in those guilds, kind of giving information that should definitely not be shared.
Well, I don't know anything about that, but I think it would be ignorant to sit here and say that not a single person in the history of ROI has not used MacroQuest. I mean, we've caught many people and gotten rid of them, and I'm sure there's plenty of people who are using it and don't get caught. It'd be ignorant to think that they're not using it. But it's it is frowned upon heavily in ROI, and that is one thing that I was all about, and I know that they're still about now. So I know they're not openly using it, and anyone who is caught using it is no second chances. I mean, we removed some really really good players for being dumb enough to get caught using it. So even though it's has cost us really really good players, it keeps our reputation and clean, and that's ultimately we don't want any tainted wins because of an open MacroQuest user who we knew was using and we let him stay. So I'm glad that we have continued to do that.
Right. And I think of it as there's three tiers of guilds and how they interact with MacroQuest. You've got ROI, which is like an example of the lowest tier, right? Like if you find out about it, you kick the member promptly, right? Um, there's the middle tier of guild, which is like you know that there are probably people in every guild who MQ, and if you find out about it, you maybe say, "Hey, don't do that," but you're not really busting anyone's balls about it, and you just kind of accept it as part of the game. Then the third tier of guild is the guild that, as part of the administration of the guild, as part of the leadership planning effort and the dynamic of the guild to play EverQuest, they use MacroQuest. You know what I mean? Those are the three
Yeah.
tiers of guilds that you have. Unless you're like a strictly family guild, someone in your guild is using it, and you just do the best you can to mitigate it, to stop it, to find out and make sure it's not welcome. And that's the best kind of guild that you can really get.
Well, I think the big difference in those tiers is I know every guild, if you go to their website and read their charter, they say, "Oh, we ban this. Don't use MicroQuest." But I know from experience, you know, we really mean it. If we catch you, you're gone. I can't confidently say every guild is doing that, but I can confidently say that we have and always probably will.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Whew. All right. This has been awesome. Qulas. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
Honestly, I thank you for your time. I had a really good time talking. You know, got into a lot of things that brought back really fond memories. Got into a lot of things that brought back not so fond memories. But at the end of the day, I've been playing this goddamn game since sixth grade. And up until the last year, this is like probably the first full year I haven't even logged into EverQuest, which seems insane to say. This game has been such a big integral part of my life to where even like in job interviews, I bring up the fact that, do you have any management experience? Yeah, well, I managed a team of 65 people who had all kinds of backgrounds. So, I mean, I actually referenced EverQuest in one of my first jobs I got, which was managing, at a catering company. We catered private airplanes. And then my boss at the time was just like so like enamored with being able to do that. So, I'm grateful for everything that the game has given me in terms of experiences, in terms of qualities, and for all the time I've got to spend with all the people in this game, and for all the friends I've made, and I met my wife in this game too. So I'm grateful for everything, and sad I'm not playing anymore, but also not sad at the same time. I miss it sometimes, but then when you try to get back into it, you don't really miss. I want to say the game itself you don't really miss. I think you miss more the people and the experience rather than actually like the pixels, if that makes any sense. Because
Yeah.
I could the game really. I mean, I'm not saying it's not fun. I'm just saying that I probably haven't had fun in it in the last couple years. But what makes it fun is the people and the experience. So there's those 3 months every year that are fun, and then the rest of the year is dreadful. And it sucks that that's what kind of MMOs are nowadays, and you just kind of supplement your MMO play with other games, I guess is what most people do. But no, I'm super grateful for everything this game has given me. I'm grateful for you allowing me to come on today. I had a good time. I'm sure there's more drama we can talk about next time, but if there is a next time, and if there isn't, that's fine too. But no, I had a really good time, and I want to thank everybody who's going to listen, all 15 of you. But yeah, no, no, this is great. Can I
Awesome,
tell you
man.
a
Hey,
joke before we go?
yeah, please.
All right, so there's three guys, and they're sitting at a bar. The first guy goes, "I think I'm the fastest man in the world." So they go out. He runs a 100-yard dash. They time it. They send his time to Guinness World of Records. Second guy goes, "I think I'm the tallest guy in the world." So he stands up. They measure him. They send him out his height to the Guinness World of Records. Third guy goes, "I think I have the smallest penis in the world." So they take a picture of it. They measure it. They send it to the Guinness World Records. A week later goes by. They all get their letters from the Guinness Book of World Records. First guy opens up the envelope. "Congratulations, you are the fastest man in the world." Second guy opens up his envelope. "Congratulations, you are the tallest man in the world." Third guy opens up his envelope. "Who the fuck is Corkin?"
Oh. Oh, we're gonna have to have Corkin respond to that. He's gonna love that.
He is absolutely gonna love that. I agree with you. But no, it's all love. Me and Corkin are really good friends. I love that guy. No bullshit.
Yeah, he's great. All right, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to before we wrap up?
I shouted out a lot of people, and again, I want to just say, over the years, I want to thank everybody who, joined my guild and let me lead them. It was an honor. Thank you for putting up with me over these years. Thank you for dealing with my faults and helping me figure out what I was good at and helping me with my strengths. Thank you for all the good times, all the bad times. Thank you guys for everything. Anyone who's currently in ROI and knows me, please, you're welcome to reach out to me anytime. I miss all of you guys. I'm always on Discord. You can reach me. You guys all know me there. Probably never going to log into EverQuest again. But, anything you want to say to me, I'm always open. Any questions, any comments, anything you guys want, reach out to me. I'm always here for you guys. Always love you guys. And I always consider myself part of the guild, even though I'm not playing anymore. Kind of like, someone who graduated high school and still goes to all the high school games. I still watch the Twitch streams that whenever they have them up and stuff like that. So no, I'm don't play, but I'm definitely invested in the guild because of just the sheer amount of time, effort, sweat, blood, and tears that I put into it. But no, I'm really confident in their continued success, and I'm excited to see them going forward.
Awesome. Hey, thanks for being on, Qulas. This has been amazing. Really fun having you on. It was great getting to chat with you again because we haven't talked in a while. And I will always remember you first and foremost as a faceless insanity officer.
Yeah, for the 3 weeks that I was in there.
Right. All right. DramaQuest out.